Look at you. Still muscly and everything.
I really don't see what all the fuss is about.
Alright, so what do you say we check in on what's going on in the Marvel Universe? Let's see, I think next is Guardians? No, Thor the Dark World. Yeah, I almost forgot about it.
Typical.
Well, the first was so much fun.
Well, it can't be worse than the first one.
Define worse.
Come on, this is exciting.
No.
So right after Loki is arrested in Avengers, he goes before Odin to see what his punishment is.
Oh, he must be really scared after what happened to Thor.
Odin wanted to kill him, but Frigga's like, "Don't you hurt my not baby." So he agrees to lock him in the dungeon for the rest of his life and not let his mommy see him ever again. So he might as well be dead.
Is that how I'm to while away eternity? Reading.
Apparently he was really busy before he went to Earth, so Lady Sif and the Warriors 3 are on Vanaheim fighting a bunch of people to make peace.
That doesn't seem right.
Sif is about to get hit, but Thor beams down right on top of the dude. It seems that the Bifrost can now beam you in convenient places instead of specific places like the first story.
We must go to the Bifrost site.
Didn't they need to drive like 50 miles to get to one in the desert?
Something like that, yeah. Anyway, Thor shows up to help because they literally brought knives to a gunfight.
That's very wise.
And he uses his hammer to beat up some guys with bazookas. This rock guy shows up, and the 100 or so bad guys look at Thor, and they're like, "You're in trouble now." Well, Thor hits him once, and he crumbles, so the entire army gives up. He's like, "All done here," then calls Heimdall for an Uber back home.
Anyone else?
In Asgard, we see that the gay bridge is back together, which is pretty quick construction of a magical structure, considering that Odin had to use dark magic to send Thor to stop Loki a few days ago.
You must think I'm a piece of bread that needs to be buttered so heavily.
Odin thanks him for his victory and tells him to celebrate by getting with Lady Sif.
Embrace and celebrate what you've won.
That night while Fandral gets his flirt on,
Perhaps next time we should start with the big one.
and Volstagg gets drunk with his children, he says they're wearing a tablecloth and considers making a move, but she acts like she wants to see his hammer, so he goes home instead.
He's not interested. It's time for you to go now.
In London, Jane is on a date with some guy, Darcy comes in dressed like an Eskimo, and this dude mistakes her for a waitress. She tries to tell her that the equipment is going crazy, and now she acts like this date actually means something. At least until Darcy goes away. Now she cares.
This was so fun.
Darcy now has an intern that likes to hide in back seats.
Hello?
Jane tries to call Eric about the readings, but he decided to go streaking through Stonehenge.
I want banana balls.
I don't recommend it.
They go to this building where some children are throwing garbage off some stairs,
Where'd they go? What the hell was that?
and Ian the intern joins in by throwing the car keys off, and they vanish.
Sometimes they come back, sometimes they don't.
Jane is following a signal and gets sucked into a vortex. She's then attacked by this red goo, and she passes out.
She's strong in ways you'd never even know.
On a ship, these elves wake up because the red goo wanted them to, I guess.
Why would Goo want the elves to know that Jane found it?
Shut up. How the hell am I supposed to know what goo wants? Goo's gonna do what goo wants to do. But these elves, they want to use the goo to do something when the 9 realms align, which apparently is really soon.
I better get my pants.
So Jane wakes up 5 hours later, and Rain doesn't like her anymore. Thor shows up to check on her because Heimdall couldn't see her for like a second, but he also knew exactly where to send him.
That doesn't seem right.
Jane gives him crap about being on Earth and not saying hi, and then she assaults some cops. Thor then steps in and takes her to Asgard.
This is so unlike you, brother. Are you sure you wouldn't rather just punch your way out?
On, this place, the elves want revenge on the Asgardians because they stopped them on the last convergence from turning the sun off.
Does something bad happen to them in the light?
No, they just like it better dark. Well, at least they think they do. They actually can't remember what it was like before. So Jane's getting an Asgardian MRI, and Odin comes in all pissed off.
She is mortal. Human lives are fleeting, they're nothing. She does not belong here in Asgard any more than a goat belongs at a banquet table.
These guys come from legend. They're basically gods.
We are not gods. We're born, we live, we die, just as humans do.
He tries to kick Jane out, but the ether fights off the guards.
Oh dear.
Odin tells them a bedtime story about the elves,
Why does there have to be a story? There's no story.
and Jane wants to know how to get the goo out of her. On the elf spaceship, Malekith stabs his best friend and shoves a rock in the cut. He then gives him a helmet and somehow sneaks him in as a prisoner of the Warriors 3. but I don't know how they didn't notice that they have an extra guy with really distinct armor.
Costume's a bit much.
In the prison, we see that everybody's just standing around, except Loki. Loki's being visited by his mom.
I thought he wasn't allowed to see her.
Yeah, that didn't last long.
My words are mere noises to you that you ignore them completely.
Well, actually, she's using magic to see him, but when she disappears, the elf pulls the rock out and smashes it. He turns into a super elf and breaks everyone out except Loki.
You might want to take the stairs to the left.
Well, Thor finally takes his tablecloth off and goes to stop the jailbreak. Heimdall hears an invisible spaceship and stabs it with a knife to blow it up. A bigger, non-invisible one with a bunch of little ones show up, so this first one's invisible to get him away from his chamber.
Nice diversion.
Because he also creates this force field around the castle, so the guy inside pretending to be a prisoner is actually there to turn it off. So Malekith's army storms the castle, and he goes after the ether. He finds Jane and Frigga hiding in a bedroom, and Frigga tries to defend Jane.
That is awesome! How did you do that?
I'll never tell you.
But Algrim grabs her. Malekith knows that Jane has the ether because it attracts him, but he also doesn't know that Jane is a hologram.
Well, how's that possible?
Witch!
So I guess her hologram is gooey too? So Algrim stabs Frigga for tricking them. Thor shows up, and they run away, even though Algrim is in berserker mode, and they're getting super close to getting the goo.
My king, we are all but defenseless.
So they have a funeral where it seems that the gravity of their waterfall is broken.
Where'd it go?
So Thor wants to take her to the Dark World to let Malekith take it out of her. Odin wants the elves to come back to Asgard for round 2.
In the first story, he was super against war.
Through your arrogance and stupidity, you have opened these peaceful realms and innocent lives to the horror and desolation of war!
And how many of our men shall fall on theirs?
As many as are needed!
Well, they did just kill his wife. He might be a little mad.
We will fight to the last Asgardian breath, to the last drop of Asgardian blood.
Although technically he is the Norse god of war, but he's also the Norse god of pretty much everything else too.
Nerd.
So Thor and Heimdall plan to break Loki out and have him show them where the hidden paths are.
What I'm about to ask of you is treason of the highest order.
When do we start?
Sif breaks Jane out, and they take a crashed elf ship out of the castle.
I've got this completely under control.
Just shut up and drive.
You're welcome. I'll hold them off. Take her.
They meet up with Fandral in his flying boat, who takes them to Loki's secret door. And Malekith can sense that they're on the planet now. Back on Earth, Darcy and Ian sign Eric out of the loony bin.
Is there a point to all this? Because there really needs to be a point to all this.
Right.
Eric has found a way to keep the convergence from affecting our world.
It's not terrible.
Thor, Jane, and Loki go to meet with Malekith, but Thor uncuffs Loki and gives him a knife. Loki immediately stabs Thor and kicks him down a hill, then cuts off his hand before he can grab his hammer.
Mjau!
Why doesn't he just use his other hand?
It hurts too much, I guess. So Malekith pulls the ether out of Jane, and Loki gives Thor his hand back, and this makes Thor put the sleeves back on his armor. And Thor electrocutes the goo. It crystallizes, but then just goes right into Malekith.
That was not my intent.
So their plan backfires. So Algrim throws a grenade at Jane, but Loki pushes her out of the way, but I'm not sure why.
I like her.
Now Thor feels obligated to save Loki.
What good would it do?
Thor and Algrim fight,
I accept your surrender.
and Loki stabs him, but Algrim stabs him back. But Loki put a goo grenade on him, so he gets sucked into himself. Loki dies.
Also, we were led to believe.
You've never been a very good liar.
The convergence is beginning, so they have to hide in a cave. Her date calls, and we see that she has great reception in a cave on another planet when I lose signal if I move over a couch cushion. And the only reason he calls is to make Thor jealous.
Are you certain?
No.
Because I'm sure that they would have noticed all the junk the kids threw into the vortex from earlier. You would notice a soccer ball in a cave on another planet.
Why there's so many shoes in here?
Can I have my shoe back?
And it's very lucky that Ian the intern's an idiot, because now they have a way home.
That, my friend, is why we won't be leaving by foot.
Odin is alerted of Loki's death by a twitchy soldier.
Loki is dead.
Oh, thank God.
So an elf ship shows up in Greenwich where Eric has everyone putting sticks in the ground,
I am not getting stabbed in the name of science.
and Malekith takes an elevator down to talk to Thor.
You think you can stop this?
He blasts Thor with goose spears, but only moves him back a few inches every time. Jane tries to clear the building, but these library turds want to film Thor fighting, and they end up getting their faces sliced off. Seriously, you don't need to film everything. especially when your personal safety's involved.
At last. Little common sense.
Well, the worlds are aligning, and Malekith is about to turn the lights off. So Thor takes a stick and works his way towards Malekith, but stupidly warns him that he's coming.
You know this plan of yours is going to get us killed.
He throws a spear at him, and Jane makes his arms disappear.
You have taken something, child. Give it back.
He then hits him with his hammer to get him out of the goo tornado, and Jane teleports him back home. His ship is about to fall on Thor, but Eric teleports it to fall on Malekith instead.
I have survived worse, woman.
Back on Asgard, he turns down the throne and tries to turn in his hammer because he wants to defend the 9 realms, even though he needs to have his powers to do that.
It belongs to you, if you are worthy of it.
I shall try to be.
He walks away, and we see that it's Loki pretending to be Odin.
But what happened to Odin?
I don't know, tied up in a closet somewhere? Sif and Volstagg take the ether to this guy called the Collector to hang on to, because it's not a good idea to have 2 Infinity Stones together.
Focus, this is important.
Relics that predate the universe itself. The other relics often appear as stone.
And the Tesseract is already in the Asgardian vault. When they leave, we find out that he's trying to collect the Infinity Stones, which you might expect from somebody called the Collector.
Have I made you proud?
I thought you said you were going to hit the subscribe button.
I said how hard could it be?
No, don't hit it. Just press it gently.
I am pressing it gently. Stop working!
I'm impressed.
I'm glad you're pleased.